Well, hello. It's Friday and it's 3 p.m. So that, of course, means it has to be a live stream with Phil Crowshaw moment on this half-term holiday week. And I was supposed to have a guest on today, but unfortunately, she's not been able to do it because of illness. So I thought, well, rather than just do one last week because I was really busy. So I thought rather than do that, I'd talk to you today about something that I'm asked a lot about on my travels. And also I'm doing a number of courses on this coming up over the next few months as well. And that's obviously all about podcasting, which I'm kind of doing now in a way. This is a live stream, but at the end of the day, it has the heart of it is actually in podcasting, of course. So what we'll do is we'll just start off as I always do, just with the intro to give people a chance to come on, and then I'm going to talk to you today and have a chat to you today about podcasting, and of course answer any questions that you might have. So I'll just put the banner there just so that you can see that you can ask questions as part of what I'm talking about. And hopefully we can have a good chat about podcasting and what's involved and whether of course it's something that you might want to get into. So let's go. Okay, so there's the intro. So today, this is Phil Crowshaw live, the Friday live, and today I'm multi-streaming as always to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, which is the software that I use called StreamYard. Allows me to what's called multi-stream to different places, which is obviously gives you a wider reach, and it allows people to consume your content at the place that suits them best. That's most comfortable. So as I said before we actually played the intro, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about podcasting, which is something that's very close to my heart, something I do an awful lot of, and something that I've started to do full classroom podcasting masterclasses now, as opposed to the online that I was doing during the pandemic lockdowns, etc. So I suppose the best place to start is, what exactly is a podcast? Well, first off, let's just see if we can define it as to what it is. One good place to look is Google, of course. So according to Google, a podcast is a digital audio file that's made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or a mobile device, and it's usually typically available as a series or a series of installments, episodes, if you like, of which can be received by people who subscribe to a podcast channel. And that subscription, they can be advised of new episodes, etc., automatically if they're subscribed to it. So you could say that podcasts are simply like pre-recorded radio shows that are released periodically and hosted by one or a few people. They're different from radio shows in that you can't really play music on podcasts. That's not strictly true. What I mean by that is you can't play the top hits on podcasts, unless you want to get sued or shut down, because you have to have a license to do to play music online. So actually, because I do like playing music as part of podcasts, sometimes I actually have a radio channel, a radio station, which allows me to play music. What you might call the hits and the well-known music. You can still play music on podcasts, but it's not usually the sorts of stuff that you would normally be able to play, obviously, on a radio show with a license. So you can't play Adele's new hits or ABBA's latest music type of thing. But you can obviously play lots of different content, but usually with text and narrative as part of it, voice as part of it, as opposed to music. So each episode tends to have a unique topic of focus, sharing thoughts and expertise. Sorry, I've got a cold at the moment. Sharing, expertise as part of that process. And so today, this podcast is obviously about podcasts or live streams about podcasting. And the number of different types of shows are endless. And the only real limitation is your imagination and the sorts of things that you're passionate about or interested in are those sorts of things that you can obviously talk about. They can be fiction, so they can be stories driven. There's lots of story-based podcasts. Science fiction podcasts are extremely popular, where you get stories, or crime as well. Crime thrillers is another area. Or you can also do non-fiction. So I'm just going to have a drink because I'm a bit sore throat today. So non-fiction topics as well as stories. And they can consist of interviews is a common one. I do a lot of interviews as part of my podcast channels because it obviously allows people to see and hear or listen to other people with expertise. And I love interviewing people with expertise because I enjoy it anyway, because I'm just naturally curious about people. Or there can be solo talks or solo to camera, like today. Sometimes I'll say on this show I'll do interviews, but today I'm just doing solo talks. They can be short episodes, and that's one of the most common questions you get asked is how long should they be this day and age, Phil? And the simple answer is it's up to you as to what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve and how comfortable you feel talking on camera or talking on audio if you're not using a camera. So there can be short episodes or there can be long form discussions. And sometimes, I've done interviews that have lasted an hour and 15 minutes just because it's flowed. It's been interesting. It's been insightful. I've been learning things from it as well. So it can be long or short form or a mixture of both. Every host will tend to have their own unique style or unique spin on how they present the content. And, listeners can listen through different podcasts to find the ones that most appeal to them. And sometimes it's trial and error. You can't always be sure if the style of the person is right for you. So mine tend to be, I suppose, informal in some ways, albeit when I'm doing solo to camera, they tend to be a little bit more formal because you're actually covering a topic. And it would, I don't know, it's not my kind of natural thing to be jumping about like a grasshopper when I'm talking on camera, unless, of course, I'm interviewing somebody and they bring out the informality of me, really. So, trial and error and the topics that you're interested in, obviously, will be part of that process, part of that journey. Just like you would on television or on Netflix, you look through things, you try things, don't you? You try and binge watch, and sometimes you come across something, you think, oh, that looks quite interesting, and then it just doesn't do it for you, or you fall asleep, find yourself falling asleep or drifting off. It just doesn't engage you in the same way. Another question that I often get asked is, well, do people actually listen to podcasts? Well, the answer to that, I think, is very much yes. People definitely do enjoy listening to podcasts, and there are literally millions of ongoing episodes and downloads all over the world of podcasts happening all the time. And of course, some podcasts have much bigger audiences than others, just like anything else in the world today. So, celebrities that are doing podcasts, for example, will get a lot more interest and a lot more people listening to it because it's a celebrity that they feel that they know and they feel that they're close to. So, for example, when Graham Norton does a podcast, you'll obviously get very significantly greater numbers of people watching it, listening to it, or watching it, for the simple reason that he's already got millions of viewers and listeners on his radio shows or on his Instagram or on his Facebook. So he's got an instant audience who are interested in or he appeals to already. So inevitably, you'll get some well-known people who will get very significant listeners and very significant viewers, and that's perfectly normal. So it really depends on the popularity of the show or the host, and that will significantly impact listenership, and it will increase. Obviously, if it's good and people enjoy it, then it will increase over time, even if you're not a celebrity. So since podcasts tend to give audiences an audio form of content, albeit you can do video podcasts as well, as I've said, this makes it a lot easier to be consumed if you think about it. So listeners to podcasts can simply pop on their headphones like these, or the ones that you pop in your ears, and listen to an episode or two while commuting to work. I think we're back to kind of commuting to work now a little bit more than maybe we might have done for the last couple of years. Or going for a run is another one, of course. You can go for a run. I'm not going to say now if I go for a run, but no, I don't go for a run because I'm lazy. Or you obviously, doing some of the chores in the house, and I'm certainly not going to say anything about that. So I'll just stop for a second. One or two people. So hi, Mandy. I've not spoken to you for a while, actually, Mandy, have I? Thanks for coming on. Great to have you on. If you've got any questions, please do ask. But I know that you were always very nervous about podcasting and recording, and I remember you kind of almost like saw the light, as it were, overcame those nerves and started to do all sorts of things on Clubhouse as well as everything else. So it's a good example, I think. Mandy's a great example of somebody who was very nervous, very not particularly confident about doing it, but she felt the fear and did it anyway, as I often say, based on the book by Susan Jeffers. And sure, she actually did it and did it extremely. Nervous you are, you can do that. So thanks, Mandy, for coming on. In the same way that you would look forward to a new episode of a favorite TV show, you can also look forward to an episode of a podcast. And quite often podcasts are provided a bit like on iPlayer or ITV Hub, so they're on demand. You come across them. I know I've come across a few where I didn't know they existed, and then they had about 2 years of episodes, and I just kind of listened or binged watched to them because I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed what they were about, and I felt I learned a lot from them or was highly entertained by them, and then binge watch them. So people can come along. People find you at any point. They can find you when you're starting it because they know you a little bit and they're just intrigued to know what you're doing, or they can find you later on, maybe a year or 2 years into it, and then start binge watching what you're doing. So everybody's got that opportunity to do that. So it's very nice. I think you've always know you've arrived when people are excited about your podcasts and desperately waiting for the next one to be released. I don't think I'm there yet, but then business and personal development can be a little bit not quite as exciting and entertaining as other topics, like I said, as sci-fi, for example. It sometimes might mean that you've got a special guest being interviewed, for example. That's happened to me in the past, where a special guest, I've got a special guest, maybe a celebrity guest that's been on with me. I've done interviews with people like Eamon Holmes from television and Sam Allardyce from football management, and all sorts of various other people in the public eye, and they often will attract more people just because that people will not necessarily know me, but they'll know the person that I'm interviewing. Or it might, of course, be just a particular podcast topic, a specific topic that you're interested in for that particular podcast episode. And it might provide some exciting content or some new insight, and that draws in new listeners. Another question I often get asked as part of the courses that I run is, can absolutely anybody start a podcast? Well, the simple answer to that is yes, anyone can start a podcast. As long as you have some way to record it or live stream it and edit it, which is simple software, if you can be bothered learning it, or even you can outsource it now and get somebody else to actually edit it for you if you prefer, if you don't want to put the time and effort in to actually learn it yourself. So if you've got that, you're already off to a great start. Recording podcasts can be done simply through your smartphone, where if you want to start with that, or if you want to invest a bit more money, then you in the sound quality, then you can start being a geek like me and investing in all sorts of gizmos and all sorts of things. Microphones, this one's a Shure SM7B, which is what you would call a professional microphone. But I'm geeky about this. It's not something you have to do, but it's something that you can do. And then you can invest in mixers, so you can start having things like sound effects, music like that, or you can have music like this, which is a bit the kind of in the news, as I call this. So if I'm going to do something about news, that's the sort of sound effect I would play. What else have we got without boring you to? I've also got another podcast called People Power, and I have a jingle for that.
Welcome to People Power.
And that's something I had recorded, which can be quite interesting. Other things you can do: applause, which is pretty obvious. And then for the Journey radio experience, I mentioned I'd started a radio station now, so you can start producing jingles for radio stations like this.
Achieve the best you possible with our insight, ideas, and inspiration. Set to a fabulous music backtrack.
So you can have all sorts of weird, and you can have great fun with it, actually, because if you can record it, or if you can download it from the internet, which is virtually any sound you can ever imagine ever, then you can load it onto mixers and play those as part of your podcast. And some people do it very, very well. I mean, I can honestly tell you that, back in the day when the Archers used to be on the radio, I think it might still be on Radio 4, sound effects of pigs and cattle and everything was the domain of the BBC, and it was the domain of the professional broadcaster. That's no longer the case. You can use the same. I'm in my small office here at home at the moment, and you can use, a really decent quality microphone. You can get all mixers like this, and yeah, they're not cheap, but they're not tens of thousands of pounds like they would have been once upon a time. It's very much the domain of the amateur. And it's the same with the radio show that I do, the radio station that I've just started very recently. And it's all internet software. It's all doable. And, again, it would have been impossible just a few years ago. So if you're willing to invest, it's like a hobby when people who are really interested in, I don't know, golf, for example, they'll invest probably a good few grand in the very best golf clubs. So it's a similar kind of situation to that. And you can spend as much as you choose to. I do actually, there is a recommendation I give on my courses that I run as a way to get started. Just wondering if I've got, I have actually. To get started, this is a good place to start. This is the Rode NT USB Mini. and these are about 90 quid. You can get them for, and these will actually plug directly into your computer through that thing there, which is of course called a USB connection, and that will plug directly into your laptop. If you want to do guest interviews, you know, face to face, now we're starting to get back to some kind of normality, then you can get 2 of these. And then of course you've got one, the other person's on the other, both plugged into the laptop. And the reason I recommend that, not because I'm on commission from Rode, is because the quality of the Rode kit is very, very, very good, but the price is not restrictive. So they're what I would call, I think I've said before, they're a bit like the Waitrose of the world. They're not the Harrods. You know, it can get really silly how much money you can spend, but they're also not the Aldi or Lidl of the market. They're somewhere around the Waitrose market, and a very successful company, and that's Rode. The other benefit, and the other reason I recommend that as a place to start, is that with those mics, comes a free piece of software called Rode Connect. And yes, it's the same company. And Rode Connect will allow you to record those on the laptop. It allows you to change the volumes of the mics. It allows you to bring in sound effects like I've just shown you, but in software terms, and it's all free and included. So if you add in a couple of pairs of headphones, these believe it or not, are Sony's, and I couldn't believe it, to be honest, but these were 25 quid on offer. And I bought 4 sets of these. I couldn't believe how cheap they were. And they're certainly good, decent quality. So you get 2 of these. What's that like? You know, say that's 50 quid. You get the 90 quid, 180 quid, 50 quid, 240. I'm rubbish at maths. 240. So let's say 250 quid, and you're all set up, and you've got mics, and you've got software, and you've got, obviously you need a laptop as well, but I'm going to assume you've already got a computer or a laptop that most people do have. So yeah, just something maybe worth thinking about. As I say, that's what I tend to recommend people do. So you can invest as much as you want, but the sound quality improves the more you spend. Generally speaking, that's true, but the sound quality has to be what I call good enough. It doesn't have to be, as I say, you know, Sky television Hollywood level, but it also, if you've got a lot of background noise or a load of hissing or scratching going on in the background, that kind of sound, you know, or interference, sometimes you get on the cheaper stuff, then people switch off very, 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 very quickly. Trying to think what else to talk about. I would say you obviously have to be clear on what you're going to be talking about before you get started. And that means a bit of planning. I usually talk, when I run the courses, I talk about planning, recording, distribution, and promotion. Those are the 4 areas that I cover in the courses that I run. And part of the planning process is to really get clear or understand what your topic is, or the concept of the podcast. So I've mentioned on here before that one of the things that I do is something called the Passions Project with my good friend and associate, Spencer Phillips. And we interview people about their passions, and that's the topic. So the whole idea of that channel is to interview people about their passions and how they've made a living or a business out of their passions, in order for other people to follow that or to replicate what those people have done, in order that maybe they can get to make a living from their passions, which, in all honesty, as I've said many times on here before, arguably is the holy grail of happiness in your work, I would suggest. So that is the topic, that's the content, that's the concept, and that's the theme. So anybody that watches or listens to one of those episodes knows that they're going to get some insight, some ideas, some inspiration about making a living from their passion. And that's what it's all about. And people know before they come in, know before they watch it, that's what it's all about. So getting that clear in your mind is very, very important. What are you going to be held? What's the value? What's the purpose? What are people going to get out of it that's going to be worth them listening to? Sometimes it can be entertainment, it's perfectly okay. Sometimes it can be controversy. Sometimes it can be news. Sometimes it can be insights, as I said, like ideas on how to achieve something better, or how to do something better, or maybe even how to start a different business or a new business, or how to do research. Obviously the topics are absolutely endless. What else to talk about? It might be one of the podcasts I listen to is about marketing. I always have to keep up to speed with marketing. Obviously, as a business development consultant and coach, I have to know what the latest thinking is around sales and marketing and business development. So I listen to podcasts that are about marketing. And that's another way to use podcasts. Another reason to do podcasts is you do it and you use it as part of your marketing strategy for your business. I always say you have to be seen and heard if you're going to sell anything successfully. The first thing is you need to be seen and heard. And of course, podcasting is a great way of being seen and heard. And if you're being seen and heard, then it's about, can you convince or influence people that you can provide enough value for them to want to work with you or want to buy your product or buy your service. And podcasting is a great way to do it. It's more dynamic, it's more interesting, it's more lively than an image or text can ever be. And I would argue now that people are kind of almost like expecting it in a sense. So once you've recorded it, then it's all obviously, then you have to start to think about the distribution bit that I mentioned. And there's something that you should get familiar with called RSS feed, which I'm not going to go into now, but understand what RSS feed is for your podcast, which will help listeners to find the show and help you to notify subscribers when new episodes are released. But again, good old Google, just type in RSS, and it's R for sugar, S for summer, S for summer. Now, if all that sounds a bit complicated, there's plenty of incredible resources out there to help you get started and smooth out the process of launching a podcast. If you're up in and around the Northwest, Manchester, I'd be more than happy to help you if it's something you're interested in. As I say, I do run training courses around the whole thing. I run a training course called Podcasting for Beginners. I also run a course called Podcasting for Serious Players, which is for people that are more serious about it, more geeky about it, and that want to become the next Holly Willoughby or Eamon Holmes or whoever your presenter hero or heroine is. Another question I get asked a lot is, does podcasting take a lot of time? And I think the answer to that is yes and no, which is a bit of a cop-out, I know. But it all comes down to the type of podcaster you are, or the type of podcaster that you want to be. And like I said a minute ago, it's almost like, if you are, are you a serious player? So if you're someone who can just hop on an episode and record it in one shot because you're gobby or you're confident, or you've done it before, or you've done public speaking before without needing any major edits because you get it right pretty much the first time, or you can read it, because obviously if it's not a video podcast, you can read it, because they can't see you. If it's a video podcast, you can't. But if it's a an audio podcast, then you can read it. However, of course, don't read it like you're reading a book. Hello, my name is Phil Crowshaw. This is a podcast that I am recording today about guinea pigs. I don't know where I got guinea pigs from, but you can see the difference. If you're going to do it, then if you're going to read it, fine. It's, hi, I'm Phil Crowshaw. Very warm welcome to this podcast. And today I'm going to be investigating the strange habits of guinea pigs. You could be reading that, but it doesn't sound like you're reading it necessarily. So obviously the tip really is to just don't make it obvious. And of course, if you do that and you can do that, then it won't take hardly any time at all. However, if you're someone who likes to trim the content and cut out ums and ers and add loads of sound effects and music overlays and do all sorts of stuff with it, then you have to be a little bit nerdy about it and enjoy the process. And if you enjoy the process, then you know it will take you more time. But if you enjoy it, then it's time well spent if you enjoy doing it, if that makes sense. So it might take a bit more of a time and it might take more of a commitment. So the simple answer is it's up to you how much time it takes. Obviously, the length of the episode will vary a lot, but you have to plan it. This is what I keep saying, but you have to plan it and schedule it and arrange the guests. You know, that's another thing. If you want guests on your podcast, then you should definitely give yourself a little bit more time, because you've got to find those guests and liaise with those guests, which you could actually outsource to somebody else or bring somebody else in or have a virtual PA to do that work for you on a pay-as-you-go basis. There's lots of different options on that. I think I mentioned it before, but on the courses that I run, I actually talk about something called matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker.fm is where which will connect you with guests from all over the world, and it will also help you to find shows to be a guest on as well. And it's absolutely free of charge, believe it or not. It's run by a company that I know quite well, a company called podcast.co, who are based in Manchester, which of course is where I am. Coincidence, nothing more than that. And they also provide me with the software called radio.co, which is the software that I use for my radio station. So great company offering some great stuff. And matchmaker.fm will help you to find guests for your show if that's something you want to do. If you've got someone on hand to edit the show, maybe you're a bigger company. I often find that in bigger companies, people love the idea of trying something new. So ask around the office who would like to start developing, who would like to be involved in producing the podcast. And that isn't always about being the voice or the face of the podcast. Quite often it can be just about the back end side of things. So getting guests is an example of a task that somebody might actually have as part of the podcast production in your company. And I have always found that people, no matter whatever job they're doing, they love doing things that are a little bit different and are a little bit outside their normal routine of the job. That's been my experience. They absolutely love to do things that are different. And of course, you've also got the whole podcasting, video podcasting, media element. So it's a bit like telly, it's a bit like radio. And very often people will say to me that they always wanted to go into television or radio when they were younger, but there wasn't the opportunity, or they suddenly became an accountant, and that's that. And then next minute they look back, 10 years had gone by and they thought they'd missed their opportunity. So people like that who are interested and intrigued and excited by media and television and radio and all that kind of stuff, they're the perfect people to be doing it in the business, and they will love it and they'll thank you for it because you're giving them something different to do in the business. So obviously, if you can get people like that, or you're a bigger company and you've got access to those resources, then the time will be less to do it. Another question I often get asked, which is the same kind of thing, is how often should I produce an episode? And again, it's completely up to you. I've just done some coaching very recently with a client, setting up a podcast, and he's decided he's going to do. We talked about it, we discussed it, and he decided that he wanted to do it monthly because he knew he's so busy in the business. He knew if he committed to anything more than that, he'd probably fall off the wagon quite quickly. And I said to him, you're better off doing one a month and committing to it than saying, oh, I'll do one a week and then not managing to do it. I do this live stream most weeks, but I don't do it every week because all sorts of things happen. You know, I'm busy, client wants to see me, and I have to prioritize that particular sort of work, or I'm running a training program. But I do my best to try and commit to it where I can. I'm probably up to about 27, 28 now. So I'm still going, and I'm still going reasonably strong. So think about how often, but at the very least, I would say once a month is perfectly reasonable to get started. And make sure you commit to that once a month. If you're daring enough, really daring enough, then of course you could do a daily podcast. And I do know what people who do daily podcasts, because they love doing it so much. They love the process of doing it so much. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but understand the time commitment that's going to involve. So really, it's up to you is the simple answer. It comes down to your style of podcast as well. You know, how much help you'll enlist to get help you, whether you're prepared to invest in that help, and how much you actually love being a podcaster versus you ticking a box in your marketing mix by doing podcasts. Another question I'd often get asked is, how do you know people will actually listen to your podcast? Well, the simple answer to that, of course, is you don't. So even with a podcast industry that's filled with thousands of podcasts, there's never anyone who can tell it quite like you can. So you are unique, and the way you put it across can be very different. So yes, there might be lots of, I don't know, podcasts from accountants. There probably isn't in that particular industry, but there might be. But you are unique in the way that you deliver it. You're different in the way that you deliver it. And you should be always thinking about, how can I be different in the way that I deliver it? So one of the things I'm going to probably do, not probably going to do, I am going to do when in the spring, when the weather gets better, I'm going to be going out and about a lot more and doing outside podcast interviews. Even before the weather gets better, during the winter, I'm going to be going to expos and events, looking for people to interview, and I'll actually be recording those podcasts with people out and about, because I actually like the idea of there being some ambience sometimes, you know, and there is a bit more of an interest or an intrigue where you can hear voices in the background, and obviously not voices so loud that people can hardly hear what you're saying, but it can be. You know, if you're a construction related podcast, there's no harm in being able to hear in the background a hammer knocking something in, or a concrete mixer going. As long as it's in the background, then that's obviously that's okay. So it's so exciting and fun because you've got so many different options and so many different things that you can do, and the only limitation is your imagination and your bravery, in all honesty. So people are always seeking new ways to hear about a topic or a subject, and new facts and experiences that they can tap into. And if you truly solving a problem or helping people achieve an aspiration, then your podcast will definitely draw listeners. But you've got to put it out there. And that's, if you remember what I said at a minute ago there, I talk about planning it, about recording it, distributing it, and then promoting it. Because if you're not promoting it, then nobody's going to know about it. And the promotion of it is a whole different topic. It's a big topic, but it usually involves, surprise, surprise, social media. You'd expect me to say that, wouldn't you? And if I didn't say that, you would be quite shocked, wouldn't you? But social media, obviously, you can put snippets out there is a good way. So you can put, 30 seconds or 60 seconds of a podcast out onto your social media, and then to listen to, or to watch, if it's a video, to watch or listen to this episode, please click the link below and it'll take them to YouTube or your chosen podcast distribution channel. One of the other ways to get more listeners for your podcast is, if you're doing a guest, make sure that they are happy to and willing to and follow through with promoting the podcast on their social media. And a good way to do that is to start with something like, a message that says, I was delighted to have been invited to do an interview for the Passions Project, talking about my passions. It was a really interesting conversation. It was really exciting, and it reminded me just how much I'm in love with my passion. Here's the link. Please enjoy it and let me know what you think. So if your guest is doing that, that's a brilliant, very effective way of doing that. So, there's a few tips there. I'm just looking, I've come up to 40 minutes on a solo. That's quite probably long enough for you listening to me gibbering on. So in conclusion then, audio podcasts or video podcasts are mainstream now. They're becoming more mainstream now. Don't miss out. Take advantage of it, trial it, test it, play with it. Remember, when you record it, you don't have to put it out there. You can record it 100 times before you put the final one out there. But play with it. It's great. I call it the sandpit of work, and that's one of the sandpits of work, is where you can play in the sandpit of podcasting and video podcasting. And that's it. And then, of course, as you know, you can go live streaming, which is a derivative at the end of the day of podcasting. So you can go live streaming like this. And again, fundamentally, as I said, I use StreamYard, which costs me about £20 a month. And that allows me to multi-stream to various different places. As I said at the start, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. But I've already got the camera because I'm do video and stuff with people as well anyway. So the cost of doing the live stream is 20 quid a month, really. That's the truth of it. I think probably one final tip I would say is if you're going to use your phone, and obviously a lot of people when they get started use their phone, and that's fine, but bear in mind that the microphones on phones are pretty rank, to be fair. They're not really that good, and they're not good enough. So my recommendation is you get an external mic to plug into your phone. And there's a number of different ways to do that. As an example, there's something called the Rode Video Mic Me, which plugs straight into your phone. There's a little microphone about that big, and it plugs into your phone, and you just point it towards you. You can also get what are called lavalier mics, which are these little things that or lapel mics, these little things you see on people's chests on the TV when they're being interviewed or they're doing a presentation on the news. You'll see a little mic that just sits on their shirt here very often. And that's called a lavalier mic or a lapel mic. Surprise, surprise, lapel mic. You can get those that plug direct in your phone. And Rode actually do one of those. Trying to remember what it's called, but it's called, if you just look up Rode lav mic on Google or on Amazon, you'll find it'll come up, and that you can put that on your lapel. You can even hold it if you want, if you're not doing a video, and then that will be a lot better sound quality. So don't forget the sound quality. So that's it. That's just some tips and techniques and what have you about podcasting. If you're already podcasting, fantastic. If you're not sure about doing it, feel the fear and do it anyway, as I said, and just get into it because it's great fun and it will build your confidence. It's like public speaking. People hate public speaking. In fact, the glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. It's true. I'm not just made it up. But I know for a fact that I did a lot of public speaking and still do a lot of public speaking at events and conferences. And I can honestly tell you that when I started to get into the podcasting arena and recording and video podcasting arena, that experience of standing up and talking to people was a significant advantage because I knew the nerves, I recognized the nerves, and I've learned how to deal with those nerves, which never go away, by the way. They never go away. So give it a go. Give it a go. If you want some help with it, as I say, I can do one-to-one coaching. I can do it online on here on StreamYard, or I can do it on Zoom, where we would work through the planning and the recording and the distribution and the promotion as a kind of a program. and I can do that as with you on one-to-one. I do plenty of that nowadays. We can meet up if you like. We can do that face-to-face as well if you prefer, if you're in the Northwest, which obviously those sorts of things I tend to do in the Northwest of England, in and around the Northwest, because I'm based in Manchester. Or I can do it online, as I say, and I can help you from anywhere in the world, basically, in that scenario. Or alternatively, if you want to get together with like-minded people and have fun, then with other people, and get excited with other people and produce your own podcast, then come on one of my courses. It's called Getting to Wow, Podcasting for Beginners and Podcasting for Serious Players. The next one will be in November in Stockport, a town just outside Manchester. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll give you details. My email address is at the bottom there. You'll see it swinging across, Phil@Geeky Group. So just drop me a note if you're interested in any of that help or support. But if you don't need that, or you think it's overkill, there's no reason why you can't read books, watch videos, and teach yourself, basically. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. Okay. I'm going to call it a day there. That's 45 minutes in live stream with Phil Crowshaw today, Friday. We don't forget the clocks are going back. Where are we now? Tomorrow. I was getting mixed up. Tomorrow night, the clocks are going back. So an extra hour in bed for those of you that need an extra hour in bed. I'm just looking forward to it being a bit lighter in the mornings. I don't know if you found this, but I wake up I wake up in the morning around about 6. I'm convinced it's 2 in the morning because it's so dark. So it'll be a little bit lighter, but it won't be like, of course, it'll be darker in the evening, but then that's the trade-off. And then over time, it'll start getting darker in the morning as well. So anyway, that's the way of the world. So enjoy that. Have a great weekend, and I'll have a great weekend as long as my football team, Bolton Wanderers, win away at Portsmouth. That's the sad life I lead. So thanks very much, everybody. I will hopefully see you again next Friday, and take care. Have a great weekend, and bye for now. Happy podcasting. Cheers.